This is once again one of those situations where I put something off, and yet I feel something special about it, so I must return to it. Some of you already know what that means. So, let's get started, I suppose. Welcome back to Y.E.S, everyone. Today we're going to talk about The Glow, the third studio album released by the DMA'S. This is an Australian indie band slash alternative rock band, something in the mix of that. While in this album we also have a little bit of, I guess, electric elements that are added. I wouldn't categorize it as EDM at all, but you know, we're experimenting and adding a couple things here and there. And they're Australian. This is an album that I thought could be pretty interesting, and I had it on while just going to the gym, having something to listen to while trying to, pump iron, whatever you want to call it. And I had a pretty pleasant feeling while listening to it, so eventually I had to come around to it once again. And I was pretty pleasantly shocked, actually, to find out how much I enjoy this album even more while giving it time just to let it kind of sink in. And I do think that that is actually a pretty accurate way of trying to describe it. I feel like I am absorbing it, maybe like in a sponge and a liquid kind of way, but in something that just feels like it doesn't ever want to separate. Now I'm going to try to explain this album as best I can without trying to overhype it. Not that it doesn't deserve hype. It does. It really does. But I do think that there are other people who are not going to experience this album the same way I did. I don't think this is an overreachingly high-quality album. I think it is a high-quality album in a very calm kind of way. In the best way that I think rock music can be described as tame, per se. If I was going to try to persuade anyone who had not heard of this band before, I would say the closest comparison I can give these guys would be Death Cab for Cutie. But in kind of an earlier stage, these guys sound like they are somewhere in the mix from the early 90s to the mid 2000s. Not like in between those two, like those two exactly, and then there's just some sort of fusion. Death Cab for Cutie came out in the late-ish 90s, and so I can kind of see where maybe there's a similarity, but if I were to describe the sound and the identity, it's like that's the inspiration that could have come after or before that era. It's kind of interesting when I try to think and describe that. I wrote down in my notes that I would call this tamed stadium rock. I guess I did think of the word tamed previously, and now here when I'm just kind of talking to you guys right now. I honestly could see a lot of people enjoying a concert from this band. I don't think that people would be bored. I think that they would be engaged. I think that they would be willing to give this music a try. If there were new members in the audience, then I would think that they would be pleasantly and actively anxious to keep engaging themselves in the music that would be presented to them and played, and there would be happiness and joy and, okay. Try not to overdo it. Let me try to see if I can get a better idea by describing some of these songs. First, Never Before. It does have that 90s and 2000s feel that I was describing earlier, but it also has some extra added production to the vocals, which happens in a couple of the songs, and you notice it, but you don't think it's like a gimmick. So therefore, I respect it, because it was utilized correctly, not a crutch. Definitely not. Now, this album actually has a lot of very surprising ballads in it. The first actual ballad in here that I would consider in that category would be the song Silver. It's very even-paced, and I just felt on par while listening to the song. It's probably like that scientific moment where people feel like their heartbeats sync with the tempo of songs. I feel like that song probably could do that pretty well. I wrote down for the song Life is a Game of Changing that it has kind of a trans electric beat to it. Just kind of something different and unique for the album in there, and probably something unique for anyone who gives this album a chance. Okay, so the song Strangers. Oh my goodness. This just has a classic bass in it. I knew that I was going to really enjoy this because of the effectiveness of that bass. That rock style just goes so well. Certain instruments just complement the song so much better, and especially when you highlight them, or at least give them the volume or the production quality to it, it worked out well. Another great ballad song called Learning Alive also has that even pace effect I mentioned before. I like the topic in here quite a bit. It's kind of talking about getting better at life, just kind of in general, as you gain experience along the way. The line that kind of just says, "I'm on your side," in this song just kind of hit me. Like, it's not overly impactful. It just kind of makes sense in the song, you taking it in and reflecting in that moment. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Cool. And then you wonder, I don't remember the last time I had a song that just kind of made sense like that. So again, like I try to say, I'm not trying to overdo it or oversell it. I will talk about a couple of negatives, albeit I don't find them very giant or great. They're there, so I'll just mention them real quick. The song Cobra Cane, this one was a little too slow for me personally, in the sense that the investment didn't really pay off. But it does sound good if you get through it all. It's a little longer than the rest of the songs in the album, so it doesn't sound bad. I just wasn't totally into it for the duration of the song. And similar to that one, the song Criminals also just kind of lacks that engagement due to its pace. But there is not really a song in here that I would say is straight up bad. This is a terrifically even keel album, and I'm surprised by what I'm going to do, but I can't lie how I feel about the album. I think it's just crafted super well, and they didn't make any mistakes that were big blunders, and that's not necessarily the qualifying factor for me not to really recommend an album. And without ranting on for much longer, not every album that I've loved a lot is technically perfect, but they're highly recommendable, and that's really the purpose of how I grade albums. So after having listened and reviewed this album, I'm going to give production an A+, I'm going to give creativity an A-, I'm going to give expression and lyrics an A, and this album is going to get yes! So like I was trying to say at the introduction of the video, I don't think everyone's going to feel the same way I do about this album. I feel very hyped many of the times when I give a yes to an album. This one, I do feel that. It just feels like it's reaching a certain point of enthusiasm, but it's an enthusiasm that I cannot deny, makes me want to say, I want to recommend this album, and I want to see what other people are going to get out of it, because I got such a pleasant experience listening to it. Now I am curious how many of you have listened to the DMA'S before, and if either of their two previous albums you think are better, or at least definitely worth checking out at the same time. Let me know down below, or any particular songs. Definitely I'm interested in that. As always guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to engage with me in my social media links down in the description, and be sure to leave a like for this video and drop a comment down below if you want to engage with me as well. And if you want to discover, promote, and review the best in entertainment, be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can get that yes in your life. See you next time.